Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, ho, 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 ho. Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 283rd Puffer Pig Packing episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you for checking out our small, independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're with us. Hit us up on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we're back. We have a little bit of Star Wars news to talk about. We have another episode of Star Wars Rebels to talk about as our rewatch of the series continues. And we continue to count down the days until a new Star Wars series graces the streaming world on Disney Plus when Skeleton Crew has its 2-episode debut on December 3rd. Super, super stoked for that still. Cannot wait. In the meantime, there has been a little bit of Star Wars news to talk about, and that is the confirmation of long-rumored involvement of a Star Wars project led by Simon Kinberg. And it appears this is all true. He will be part of a new Star Wars trilogy, probably not connected to the Skywalker saga, but that has been not refuted at this point. But we know that Simon Kinberg will be hard at work on a new Star Wars trilogy of some sort. And, we talked about this fairly recently here on the podcast. I'm not going to get too excited or too up or too down on this news because over the years we've had many, many, many Star Wars films announced, trilogies even announced, and here we are, still waiting for many of them. Many of them have been shelved and not going to happen by all appearances. That's not to say that Simon Kinberg's won't come to fruition, but I side with the fan base that the side of the fan base that wants to be cautious, and I'll say cautiously optimistic. Simon Kinberg has done. He's involved on the show that we're watching right now. He's involved in Star Wars Rebels, and it's a show that I think is very, very good. But like most people in Hollywood, you can find things in Simon Kinberg's resume that aren't so great. A lot of feelings about his involvement in the last batch of 20th Century Fox X-Men films, and yeah, there's a lot of not so good stuff in that whole area, but again, it's a Star Wars project. I choose to be excited about it because it's Star Wars. But will it happen? Will something change down the road? Maybe, possibly. We may never see these Simon Kinberg movies. I hope we do. I would love it if we got some more Star Wars in the cinema. Obviously, the only one we know for sure coming soon to a theater near you is The Mandalorian and Grogu. And that's because it's a Star Wars commodity with a track record at this point. So Filoni and Favreau, all the pieces, all the players were in place for that to make the leap and to bring Star Wars back to the big screen. And I can't wait to see how they do it. I'm really, really excited about that. And obviously that movie will have connections to the show that we're watching right now, Star Wars Rebels. So let's go ahead and get into our Rebels rewatch. All right, this is Star Wars Rebels, Idiots Array, Season 1, Episode 11. The original air date January 12th, 2015. Written by Kevin Hobbs, directed by Stuart Lee. Our primary cast for this week's episode: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall as Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan Jarrus, Tia Sakar as Sabine Wren, Steve Blum is Zeb Orielos, Dave Filoni as Chopper, D. Bradley Baker as Admiral Cassius Constantine, he's Old Joe, and TIE Pilot number 2. The great James Hong joins us playing as Morgan. Ben Diskin is TIE Pilot number 1. And, of course, if you didn't already know by the title, the great Billy D. Williams returns as the voice of Lando Calrissian. Great stuff there. All right, our plot for this episode: the wrong gamble with a new acquaintance forces the crew into transporting some unusual cargo. And that's the name of Lando's game in this particular episode of the show. I'm just going to come out and say it. I like this episode. Its reviews on IMDb are sort of in the middle of the pack, around 7 stars. A lot of people refer to this episode as something of filler. I disagree. I don't think it's filler. I don't think it's a fan service episode. I think Lando in this episode makes a ton of sense, because Lando was there to show us that this group of rebels is having an effect on Lothal. It is having, their presence has caused this Imperial blockade, and Lando, being Lando, the entrepreneur that he claims to be in this episode, is trying to find ways to take advantage of it. All the mining restrictions that the Empire's put on place, Lando may have come up with a way to circumvent them, so that others may potentially prosper from Lothal's natural resources. Now, again, that's a little bit. There's a little bit of a conflict in the sense of, well, the Empire obviously is going to strip mine the planet and do bad things, but mining planets isn't probably good for anybody. So Lando getting involved maybe is not a good thing either, technically. But I would say that Lando's probably not nearly as bad as the Empire, as far as their intentions go. Like, Lando's not going to just destroy a planet and move on to the next one, as the Empire would. But depending on your opinion on mining in general, you may not necessarily agree with what Lando's doing in this episode. I think it's a fun episode. It's not a super heavy-hitting episode like our previous one was, but it's got a lot of, I don't know, just nice moments. And I like seeing Lando be sort of like the suave con man that we know his history indicates him to be. Now, remember, this also predates Solo, so we don't have a younger version of Lando just yet to sort of reference this too. So he looks very much Billy D. Williams, and I think that's cool. I think that's great. And again, I like the way he sort of plays the crew against each other a little bit to advance his agenda. And it's fun. And again, he shows himself, tells people he's an entrepreneur, he's a connoisseur, all these different kinds of things, to show that Lando is sort of like this jack of all trades. It works for me. I think it's really well done, and Billy D coming back to the voice is just simply fantastic. So let's go ahead. Let's talk a little bit more about the episode on the other side. You know what that means, friends. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So our episode opens on a interesting cantina with a Clone Warsian homage above its entryway. And we find Zeb playing Sabacc against a mysterious opponent in the shadows. And Zeb seems to think he's faring quite well and has this person right where he wants him. Has a great hand, but he's out of chips. So that tells me that maybe he hasn't been doing as well as he'd like us to think. Now the crew of the Ghost, they're in a bit of a pickle. They need some money. They need credits. They need fuel. And this all plays into our mysterious card player's hands, who, of course, would be Lando Calrissian. And I think this is ultimately Lando's plan. I think Lando's done his homework. I think he's aware of the crew of the Ghost, that they are as good as he needs them to be. I think he knows that the Ghost can mask its signature and get past the Imperial blockade like he needs it to. Now, this episode, again, Lando plays everything very, very close to the vest. We know that he needs to get this cargo and he needs to get it onto Lothal, and that this crew of the Ghost, again, being so good at what they do for disrupting the Empire, there is a blockade in place, a blockade that he can't get past without their help, without Hera's piloting skills and the unique ability that the Ghost has of being able to mask its signatures. And again, it'd be foolish to think that Lando doesn't know all this ahead of time, and that he's not running a bit of a con on everyone. But I like that part of the show. Like, he's not doing anything mean or malicious to the characters. Just sort of like the divide and conquer kind of mentality that he might have to get what he needs out of them, by kind of keeping them off balance. Like the way he sort of manipulates both Zeb in the card game, how he later manipulates Kanan, how he manipulates Sabine, how he manipulates Ezra. The only one he doesn't seem to get the better of is Hera, sort of showing us that Hera might be the one person who can kind of keep up and maybe be one step ahead of Lando to a certain extent, at least as far as anticipating, what may come, like what kind of person he is. So she's the one who's on her toes here. Everyone else is sort of on their heels when it comes to Lando and the way he is moving amongst the crew. It's all very, very interesting. Now, back to this card game, putting Zeb very confident that he has a hand that will win, that'll get them the vital credits they need. So he wants to bet. He wants to use Chopper to cover his end of the bet, right? To enter his end of the pot. He has to get Kanan's permission, but again, Chopper's not there as to bet. Chopper is very aware of this. Chopper banging his head against the table, and Chopper probably counting the cards, knowing that it's very possible that Zeb's hand is not foolproof or idiot-proof, as you might say, because despite the fact that Zeb has pure Sabak, Lando, of course, has the one hand that can beat that, which is the Idiot's Array. Now, they do a pretty good job in this episode of sort of breaking down the very, very basics of Sabak. But I still think if you are a fan, like I am, of the old, long-abandoned, expanded universe, one of the best breakdowns of the rules of Sabak is actually in A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy. They do a really nice job of breaking down the rules of Sabak through the course of card games that Han and Lando are in, and very, very well done, if that's something that you wanted to go back and check out for yourselves. So, of course, Lando now controls Chopper. He has worked out a deal with Kanan to help get some cargo. And Hera knows, I think Hera knows very, very quickly that they've been played, that they've been manipulated. And again, she goes along with it because, again, she's trying to get Chopper back. Lando has no intention of keeping Chopper. It's just leverage. It's all just leverage so that he can get what he needs from the crew to get what he needs onto Lothal, which is ultimately revealed to be a big puffer pig. This leads to us having to go to space and meeting up with Lando's contact to acquire this puffer pig, and that would be as Morrigan, a Jablonian gangster from Nar Shaddaa, voiced by the great James Hong. So that's always fun when you get to hear James Hong's voice in a Star Wars character. He also trades Hera, gives the impression that Hera is his Twi'lek slave. But again, Hera seems to be on par with Lando as far as running the con. She seems to be more willing and not pushing back on it the way that Kanan does when, again, everyone's on their heels. Hera is the one on her toes, so she goes along with Lando's plan, picks up the cues that Lando's dropping about escape pods and things like that so that she can get away from As Morrigan. And it's fun. I just think it's a really fun sequence. I think it's fun the way Hera is the only one who is able to go toe-to-toe with Lando and is sort of cunning. And yeah, I don't know. So we get this puffer pig. It leads to shenanigans, of course, because it would have to be with the crew of the Ghost. So reactionary towards Lando's prodding and manipulations, Ezra's jealousy at the way he's able to get Sabine's attention because Lando is a connoisseur of the arts. He's also very suave and debonair. So Ezra has this jealous streak in him. Zeb's just angry because he thinks that Lando probably cheated in cards, and maybe he did. We don't really find out for sure. And Kanan, again, completely off balance because Lando traded Hera, but Hera is the one who's going along with everything. So eventually, things sort of work out to the satisfaction of Lando. It's fun to watch them go to the Imperial blockade, to see the Ghost do what it does, and to see the way the Empire responds to it. Now, of course, the shenanigans I referred to, spurred on by the jealousy of Ezra Bridger and Zeb's sort of inability to be normal around this creature. He scares the puffer pig, so the puffer pig puffs up. Again, it leads to a whole thing. But eventually, the puffer pig expands even more after Ezra's mistaken attempt to get back to Sabine and Lando. And it causes the Ghost to come out of its, to switch off its sort of masking signature. So the Empire figures out who they are pretty quickly. They're in pursuit. There's a great sequence with the crew kind of separated from each other, people not in their normal positions, as we've seen them in previous episodes, having to adapt and attack the Empire and survive it, and which they do. And they go to this remote farm that Lando has acquired from Vizago, and he explains how this puffer pig is going to help him acquire some of the rich minerals that are on Lothal, because the Empire has been monitoring for mining equipment, and that's why he needed the Ghost's help to get this puffer pig onto the planet, because it's obviously it's organic. It's not going to be detected by any sort of scans the Empire is doing, and now Lando can get a little slice of the riches of Lothal. And we don't get into a whole lot of what exactly Lando's got up his sleeve, but again, sort of fun the way it goes on. I really like the way that Lando kind of brings Chopper into his confidence, but Chopper's kind of running his own little game as well. So again, kind of showing that the crew of the Ghost, while so many of them are reacting to Lando, Hera, Chopper, maybe the only ones who are cunning enough on their own to be one step ahead of the guy. Maybe one step is generous, maybe, but at least toe to toe with him. We can go toe to toe, be step to step, and do their thing. Now, of course, at the farm, we go from the Empire to As Morrigan, who is very well aware of where Lando was going with the puffer pig, because As Morrigan is friends with Vizago, so he knows that Lando owns this plot of land. So a gun battle ensues, but guess what? It turns out our hero's way, because Chopper takes some fuel, gets back on the ship, and starts using the Ghost to shoot at people. So it all goes their way. But it's a fun action sequence, and we get to see Ezra's multifunctionality of his lightsaber as a blaster, basically. And sort of, I did enjoy the moment of Kanan's jealousy, the fact that his lightsaber doesn't do what Ezra's can do now with that giant pulse blast that comes out of it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that specifically in an episode soon, because I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the uniqueness of Ezra's saber down the road here. But that's basically the episode, and it's a lot of fun. Again, Chopper sort of gets ahead of him, steals fuel from Lando. Lando claims he knew he was going to steal the fuel, and he let them because he knew he wasn't going to pay him at the same time. So it all worked out according to the way Lando wanted it to. Meanwhile, the crew of the Ghost thinks they got one up on him, Did Lando really anticipate them stealing the fuel because he knew he wasn't going to be able to pay them any credits? Who knows? I suspect that probably is true. But again, everything seemed to really break the way Lando needed it to, but the Ghost comes out with some fuel at the very least, while if not having credits to show for everything they went through to help Lando get his puffer pig in place. Now, the puffer pigs do come into play later on. I can't remember if it's in this season or another one, but I do know that they are in another episode of the show. So stay tuned as we do more puffer pig fun. I can't remember if Lando reoccurs, though. I don't think he does. I believe this is his only appearance on the show, but I could be mistaken about that. So what do I think of this episode? Like I said, on IMDb, he's getting about seven stars. And I think, all in all, I'm probably going to be overly generous and I'm going to give it a soft 8. You could probably, take away my kindness, my generosity, and make it a 7.5 if you wanted to. But I'm going to say 8 buckets of fun. 8 buckets of fun. Not filler. It's an important episode. Again, I think this episode really highlights Hera in a nice way. Again, the rest of the Ghost crew on their heels, the way Lando sort of spins them around, keeps them off balance. Hera, the only one on her toes the entire time around Lando. Good to note. So I think this highlights her very, very well as a strong character who works well independently, but also tries to take care of the adopted family she has on the ship. Good stuff. And I think that's it, Bucketheads. I don't think I have anything else for you on this episode. Solid entertainment, and I can't wait to talk to you about the next episode moving forward. So let's go ahead and wrap this puppy up. What do you say? Go ahead, follow the podcast on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision, Twitter and Instagram. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If possible or so inclined, sweet 5-star reviews are a great way to help support the show. Truly appreciate everyone who takes the time to do that. Bucketheads, go out there and be great Star Wars fans. We need you guys on your toes the way Hera is, because with Skeleton Crew coming up, I can't help but worry that the internet trolls are lurking and ready to pounce. Now, again, we haven't seen the show. We don't know if it's good or not yet either. But I suspect with it being Star Wars under Disney, it will be divisive in some regard. We will have to wait and see if that's the case or not. But go out there. Now's the time to encourage new people to try and reconnect with Star Wars again. Maybe they didn't like The Acolyte. Maybe they were turned off by the Book of Boba Fett. Tell them about the Skeleton Crew and why you think it might be a good time, and a good time to come out and see what's new in the Star Wars universe. Again, Baskin Robbins of flavors. That's what we want out of our Disney series. Something for everyone. And I think Skeleton Crew is going to scratch a very specific itch for many a Star Wars fan. I'll be curious how younger fans react to it, ones who didn't grow up in the generation of Amblin Entertainment and Kids on Bikes. But we will wait and see. Again, go out, be great Star Wars fans, be kind, supportive, and respectful of each other. It's okay to disagree. As long as we have kindness and respect for each other in our hearts, that's what matters the most. That's the culture we're building here on this podcast amongst us Bucketheads, all right? We'll be back next week, friends. And until then, remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.